Oh, Rick Caruso on being Italian.
You had a stroke just days before the primary here. This is the first time you've sat down with a journalist in person. You have closed captioning technology to help with those auditory processing issues. Will this impact how you do your job if elected? For example, will you need potentially accommodations like this on the Senate floor?
Why would that impact his job performance, dude? Why? Why would that impact his? That's just straight ableism.
I don't think it's going to have an impact. I feel like I'm going to get better and better every day. And by January, I'm going to be, much better. And Dr. Oz is still going to be a fraud.
Bro, she's just asking, stop. Brother, that's an insane question to ask. You understand that, right? That question inherently is an ableist question. It's quite literally the exact same thing as like going up to like Greg Abbott or Tammy Duckworth and being like, is it going to impact your performance that you need walking aids? That's a ridiculous question. I despise Greg Abbott, but that's a psychotic question to ask. It literally doesn't matter. It's like coming to me and be like, you need glasses. Does that impact your job performance? I'm like, no. At the top of the hour, I still serve the ads.
Really isn't anything that's going to stop me from doing this job.
I mean, it took you a long time to get back on the campaign trail. Can voters trust that you will be able to do this job on day one?
Yeah, of course. I think that the campaign itself is incredibly difficult, and even with or without having the stroke is an issue. But I've been able to run a successful campaign despite having the issues with auditory processing, et cetera. So I believe I'm going to be able to serve effectively.
You've been on this road of recovery. I'm sure it hasn't been easy. This is a serious health.
Daily Beast piling on too? Yes, man, yes. The Clintonites are out, dude. What the? Like, let's be real. The Daily Beast is basically like the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, like the most liberal side of the Democratic Party, right? But it's wild. Like, Brandon is the president, man.
What has that recovery process been like? How has it changed your day-to-day experience?
Everything about it has changed. Basically, having a conversation with your wife, to having a conversation with your children, the ability to really understand exactly what I'm being heard but it gets much, much better where I take in a lot. But to be precise, I use captioning. So that's really the major challenge. And every now and then I'll miss a word every now and then, or sometimes I'll maybe mush two words together. But as soon as I have captioning, I'm able to understand exactly what's being asked. But even after the stroke, immediately after that, I was able to read everything and I haven't lost any memories or anything like that. It's just really the lingering issue that I have.
Yeah, I mean, I know before this you've admitted you hadn't really thought about your health very much. You hadn't taken great care of yourself. What's it like now for you? Is there some frustration in having to face this, every day?
It's not frustration. It's just a challenge, actually.
Sir, what do you have to say to the fact that we see your knees and ankles quite regularly and you dress up awfully? Many people are saying you wear Carhartt a lot, and we find that to be distasteful, particularly.
I always thought I was pretty emphatic. I think I was very, empathetic. That's an example of the stroke, empathetic. Yeah. I always thought I was very empathetic before having a stroke. But now after having that stroke, I really understand, much more kind of the challenges that Americans have day in and day out. So I think it's really reminded me that, one, how critical healthcare is, because healthcare saved my life. And it also, the support that I get going to having speech therapy and just making sure getting back to being to 100%. Those are the kind of resources everyone deserves to get, because strokes can have to anybody.
I mean, when you have moments like you had just now where you had a hard time getting a word out, right? How does that feel for someone who, as a politician, a lot of what you do is talk to constituents, talk to your colleagues, right? What's that experience like of just not quite being able to get the words out in the way that you want them to?
The first 4 minutes of this entire interview has revolved around how fucking disabled John Fetterman is. I'm losing my mind. I thought there was more to it. I wanted to watch it because I was like, maybe it's just short hits that they covered, and are hyper focusing on. No, man. What is this, the whole interview? This is insanity, bro. This won't tip the scales, right? He's still on track to winning. He should go balls to the wall and be like lying fake news media. He will win every polling station in Pennsylvania. If he was like, look at what the lying NBC fake news media is doing to me because I'm an anti-establishment candidate. Yeah, I can work with Joe Brandon. I'm a Democrat. But let's be real. It's because of my closeness to the average Pennsylvanian that media elites like those in the No Bitches channel, NBC, are attacking me relentlessly. I'm recovering from a stroke, and everyone in Pennsylvania knows I put my heart and soul into this goddamn state, unlike Dr. Oz, who had to fake being from this state to even run. That's why they're attacking me, because I want what's best for Pennsylvanians, and NBC does not. Boom. He wins every county.
No, I don't think it was hard. It was just about having to be thinking more slower.
Attacking someone for a stroke when they're running for a Senate seat is not an invalid argument, especially if that stroke has diminished their cognitive functioning. I'm sorry. You can do that. That is fair play. But if someone has demonstrably not diminished their cognitive functioning and cognitive capabilities, and they're adequately responding to your questions, but they need fucking hearing aids or some kind of hearing aid because they have some kind of hearing impairment, you can't continue on with that narrative like, well, you're deaf. Does that mean you're fucking stupid? Like, if someone is very clearly understanding, reading, responding to your questions adequately, quickly, and if someone is able to fucking tour the entire goddamn state, you can't turn around and still try to cut that fucking narrative. Then you're being gross. If you ask Joe Biden this many questions about his cognitive capabilities, he would flub. Be like, look alive, Jack Corn Pop. You ask Herschel Walker this, he would not be responding adequately. Plus, we're forgetting that Pennsylvania also has Yinzers, okay? Pittsburgh is in Pennsylvania. Have you heard a motherfucker from Pittsburgh speak? Hello? Have you heard a motherfucker from Philadelphia speak? Let's keep it real. Are they even speaking English? No, but it's fine. We still act like they are. When we meet them, we say, hey, no, that's fine, man. You're doing it. Good job. I'm just kidding, guys.
To just understand. And sometimes that's kind of the processing that happens.
So you say you're on the road to full recovery, but right now, voters really have to take your word for it. We've asked for your medical records. We've asked to have a conversation with someone from your medical team to interview your physician. You've declined those requests. Why?
Well, I feel like we have been very transparent in a lot of different ways. When our doctor has already given a letter saying that I'm able to serve and to be running. And then I think you can't be any more transparent than standing up on a stage with 3,000 people and having a speech without a teleprompter and just being and putting everything and yourself out there like that. I think that's as transparent as everyone in Pennsylvania can see.
I mean, respectfully.
I love when motherfuckers are like, bro, Steelers have the most Super Bowl victories, bro. What are you talking about? Yeah, I know, dude. You know what happened to Pittsburgh is the same shit that happened to the Steelers, okay? Industry left, and then their Super Bowl victory is what, 2009? Come on, motherfucker. I was going to goddamn college. That was the first year I was in America. That's the last time they won a fucking Super Bowl. Give me a goddamn break. Motherfuckers be like, bro, 1975 was a really good year for the Steelers, though. You know what I'm saying? We had a run, brother. We had a run, baby. None of you were alive. What do you care? I'm just fucking around, by the way. I'm literally fucking around. I'm joking. It's the Jersey in me. Blame it for that.
That letter from your physician, that was 6 months ago. You've talked to yourself about how this is a journey. The recovery process can be up and down. Don't voters deserve to know your status now?
As I said, being in front of thousands and thousands of people and having interviews and getting around all across Pennsylvania, that gives everybody and the voters decide, if they think that it's really the issue.
Pennsylvanians, when I shit on Ohio, fuck yes. Oh yeah, keep going. Yeah, you're so right. Pennsylvanians, when I shit on Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania, oh no, don't do that. That's fucked up. Fuck you. Hey, fuck you. I'm no longer a fucking fan. The fuck do you know? You're from New Jersey. We are now officially 8 minutes in, and all questions have been about, hey, why is your brain not working? Hey, many people are saying your brain's not working. Hey, is your brain not working? Okay, let me ask again. Is your brain not working? Is your brain no good? Brain no good? No good brain?
Much later.
Okay, I'm losing my mind. I'm literally fucking losing my mind. Not a single question has been anything beyond. Bro, she's asked the same question in like 11 different ways. Ask a policy question, please. Please, please, please. One policy question. Please, 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 please.
Much later.
So you've acknowledged your race is very close. Josh Shapiro, who's running for governor, is sort of running away with his race, which indicates that there might be some voters who are thinking about voting for Shapiro and voting for Oz. Why do you
No,
think
that's
that is?
not fucking... What? First of all, Josh Shapiro is running against a fucking total kook. Okay, I'm realizing she's just baldest, dude. I'm realizing something right now. She's just baldest. What do you have to say for the people who are running it down bald, anti-bald ticket? People who will go for Josh Shapiro and then go for Dr. Oz because they both have a full head of hair. I'm sick and tired of acting like that's not the case. First of all, the difference between Shapiro and Mastriano is 10 points. The difference between Fetterman and Oz is 6 points or 7 points. There's a reason why Mastriano and Shapiro have been going 10 points versus 7 points. And that reason, of course, is that Doug Mastriano is a complete psychopath. Dr. Oz has notoriety. He's a TV celebrity. He conducts himself decently, but you know, he's a gigantic fucking elitist. This notion that he's like running away with it while you're fucking being devastated, you're being clumstered, is crazy.
I think that the difference in there is that we've had over $20 million unload on us in the last 5 weeks. So of course that's had an impact on the race. And Fox News has all ganged up on us, and every night, in fact, more than every other of the candidates combined, actually, and that's a truth. So that's changed
they've been ripping into him from the jump, because there was a point in time when he was outperforming Shapiro with respect to Mastriano. I think maybe I'm wrong about that. Actually, I thought that he was part of the reason why Shapiro was doing better, but maybe I was wrong about that. Yeah, I thought early on he was actually outperforming Shapiro. That Senate seat is more important than governor? No, dude, the gubernatorial race is also incredibly fucking important. Are you kidding me? Especially when the stakes are so fucking high. A governor has so much power, especially if it's a state like Pennsylvania. Are you joking? You get a guy like Doug Mastriano in the governor's seat. You get a guy like that in the governor's seat of Pennsylvania, you're fucking cooked, okay? They're going to be like, yeah, if you ever vote for a Democrat, we're throwing you in jail.
Dynamic there, true. When the other opponent, Doug Mastriano, hasn't spent any money or any commercials or any kinds of back. So, of course,
you can impact, especially if you have a red state legislature, you can impact decisions that are being taken. Depending on the Supreme Court case coming out of North Carolina, that's gonna be gigantically impactful. But you can literally impact the way that statewide elections are conducted. You can impact abortion laws inside of the state. A lot is at stake in a race like that. And by the way, don't trust me. Trust Mastriano himself.
Doug, I want to understand why the National Republican Party is AWOL when you're running. I mean, in Pennsylvania, Republicans know.
This is the funniest interview. Newsmax has the funniest hosts. Oh, my God.
You are their hope. But the National Party is so dominated by the establishment that they just think you're too honest, too outspoken, and too independent for them. Are they getting over it?
The state party is fantastic, the state GOP, but some of the national ones, you ready at least said, I guess I'm not their kind of guy. I served in the Army my entire adult life, love my country. I don't play games. All I care about is the people and the Constitution that I actually fought to defend. And the sad thing, Dick, is that you have to hand it to the Democrats. They stick together. They see how important Pennsylvania is, and they poured about $30 million into this race. And I'm being kept strong by the people of the nation. Actually, people from
Doug Mastriano has the most Xbox Call of Duty lobby microphone, and also his politics are fundamentally the same as someone, saying slurs that you would often hear from that kind of audio quality.
From across the entire United States have been helping my campaign out quite generously. And it doesn't, Pennsylvania.
Doug, people are always asking me, can Trump come back in 24? I wrote this book saying that he can. But he has to win the governorship in Pennsylvania. So I don't care if you live in Pennsylvania or on the moon. This is the guy you need to support because he's the key to unlocking honest elections in the swing state. Thanks for coming on, Doug.
I get to appoint the Secretary of State, and the road to 2024 goes straight through Pennsylvania.
There you go. He literally said it. What more do you need? He said it. He admitted it. The road to 2024 goes through Pennsylvania, correct, and he gets to appoint the Secretary of State, which oversees the elections in the state of Pennsylvania. There you go. There you have it. That's why the governor position is incredibly important, even before we talk about fucking undermining a woman's right to choose in the state of Pennsylvania.
That really reflects the dynamic, quite to be honest.
The president just took a major step on the issue of marijuana decriminalization, pardoning thousands.
Finally. Fucking finally. No, we're moving on. This is good shit. Here, this is important shit.
What can you tell us about those conversations and how momentous this is in your view?
I think it's really, it's going to change the nation in a way.
She's going to be like, but did you hear the president talk about marijuana? Huh? Did you hear him say it? How can we trust your opinion on anything, including the marijuana legalization conversation, if you can't hear well? I'm just saying, did you hear it or not? Especially because Joe Biden has a hard time putting together crafting sentences, and maybe your hearing impairment tool is not going to be able to pick up the subtitles. Was that a good conversation? Fucking deaf guy? Huh?
In terms of our conversation about marijuana and allowing to be on the path to bringing where it should have always been. It should be legalized. And given that second chance, I think is what a majority of Americans would want to see happening. And I believe that even in very conservative states like South Dakota, other these kind of states have already voted democratically to make it legalizing it. So it's really not controversial. It's just the right way to go.
Do you think that your stance on clemency, on crime, might be out of touch with Pennsylvania and with this moment? What do you say to someone who's concerned that this is not the time to relax sentencing, but a time to focus on public safety?
Well, I believe that every person that had some commutation, it's a tiny fraction. It's around a couple dozen out of over 5,000 people in that situation. And every single person voted on this and supported it, from the warden, to the Secretary of Corrections, all the way down to the guards, and all 5 members of the board all voted yes. And the governor did. They signed off on that. So, and I believe in redemption. And I would just ask anyone watching, I would say, if you've seen Shawshank Redemption, the movie, and if you, at the end of the movie, you would vote to have Morgan Freeman's character die in prison, then that's the choice. That's really that you look at the end of it. And if somebody's done 40, 45, or even more than 50 years, and they've had a perfect record, and they have demonstrated a lot of remorse for what's done, I haven't met a single person that said, yeah, Morgan Freeman should die in prison. It's all a choice on redemption and giving somebody a chance to not die in prison that is of any danger to the public whatsoever.
But it's a little bit about priorities, right? And for voters who say, I'd rather prioritize the safety of me and of my kids.
Then what? A fucking 78-year-old man? Like, what the fuck? He's literally saying if you've served a 50-year fucking prison sentence and you have also demonstrated good behavior throughout the 50 fucking years, who's sitting there waiting to come out just so they can do more murders? Also, how will they do more murders? That's always a fun question. It's like, who's going to come out 78 years old, okay, served a 50-year sentence? Who's going to come out and use a walker? Like, what do you think's going on?
In and around Philadelphia, than prioritizing clemency or lower sentences for criminals. What do you say to those voters?
Well, I actually have a record in fighting crime. as mayor of Braddock here during 4 terms. Braddock has a significant gun violence issue, and I ran for mayor in the first place to be a mayor to fight crime violence. And we went 5.5 years without a murder in town. And we made it effectively by partnering with the police and the community. And we funded the police. We funded the police and created a strong partnership between the police and the community. So I'm the only candidate that I'm actually running on my record on crime, whereas Dr. Oz has never done.
Even on the policy side, he's getting cooked even on that. I mean, she is awful, dude. It is bananas.
Anything about crime except going around and running a bunch of commercials lying about my record. But what's true is that during my time as mayor, I stopped the killing here.
Do you worry potentially about over-indexing on the issue of abortion and not focusing enough on issues like the economy and inflation that voters consistently list as top concerns?
No, I mean, abortion is incredibly important, and it's being very energizing by the electorate. I mean, that's a basic race, I believe, for the last 50 years. And Americans have been outraged, and they believe that their choice belongs with them and not with Dr. Oz or the Republicans, or they need Roe v. Wade. And I support that it belongs with a woman. And inflation is it is a big issue. But at the end of the day, it is a tax on working people. And
by the way, deflecting away from abortion to talk about inflation literally immediately undermines the number one issue that everyone cares about within the current political races that are happening, only to focus on the number one issue that Republicans care about. Notice how I said the number one issue that everyone cares about is abortion, because abortion is across party lines. Inflation is across party lines as well, but overwhelmingly something that Republicans want to talk about because it benefits them, because they can say it's the Democratic establishment that is causing this. This is directly Republican opposition research. Bemji says she's rolling him pro-Israel, pro-police progressive. Brother, be real for a fucking moment. You're out of your mind. Like, I don't like that either, for the record. I don't like John Fetterman's. There are a couple things that I don't like about John Fetterman. You basically described them. But, like, if you're going to fucking follow the ins and outs of electoral politics, how the fuck are you going to shit on John Fetterman? You're in the shit just like we are. You know what I mean? This is what you're going to get in Pennsylvania, especially. What are you expecting? He's super pro-labor. He's a pro-Medicare for all. He's been a big Bernie supporter since the jump. And this interviewer is not fucking running around and being like, well, that means nothing, literal nothing. Okay, well, again, I am a political commentator. I'm gonna talk a little bit about marginal change every now and then. And I will go so far as to say that more John Fettermans ultimately is a good thing. Straight up. John Fetterman is a good candidate. If the Democratic Party was comprised of more John Fettermans, the Democratic Party would unironically be significantly closer to pushing for socializing key aspects of American existence, 100%. What I'm simply stating is, leftists need to stop looking at a gift horse in the mouth, okay? But leftists, of course, have this painful inability not to apply the most vicious and bad faith critique to people that are on their side and try to dogpile on everyone as best as possible. My point is, listen, brother, we're already in the zone. We're not talking about like fucking Vanguard Party shit. We're not talking about seizing the means of production. We're talking about the Democratic Party's chances in the Pennsylvania Senate race. So if you're in here, that's my analysis. I'm talking about that. My worldview outside of that. But if I'm talking about this and you're trying to fucking bring the conversation back to like some other larger picture, then you're just being ridiculous. HasanAbi turn sock them. Man, where have you been? The only people that call me communist or socialist at this point, outside of my own fan base, are just Republicans. Pretty much every fucking influencer with a Substack has called me a fake socialist grifter at a certain point in their fucking careers, exclusively because they think that they will develop a career that way. To them, I say, I don't give a fuck. Everybody literally hates socialism. Socialism is considered a pejorative in this goddamn country. You are literally doing a disservice to the cause that you claim to care about. When I'm covering electoral politics, I'm always going to cover it from from a pragmatic point of view. I will always recognize the impact that someone like Bernie Sanders, who otherwise would also be considered a social democrat, if you look at his legislative career, has been profoundly impactful in waking up thousands, hundreds of thousands of fucking young people in this country, even older people in this country, to the realities that socialism is a viable alternative. That's it. A lot of you don't remember a time when the internet, or not even just the internet, but just American politics seemed to be so fucking lonely. You were out there on your own. There was really not many alternatives out there. There were no like viable leftist alternatives. There were not this many people that were openly stating that they were anti-capitalist. It was not a thing. And that only happened because electoral politics brought socialism back into the fucking mainstream, especially at a time when contradictions are more apparent than ever before, as a consequence of a candidate that was able to communicate the anger that the working class feels effectively running against a weak candidate like Hillary Clinton. In the 2016 primaries, you saw a genuine movement to mobilize. Well, it happened because capitalism is inherently flawed and it was inevitable. I recognize that. But you're crazy if you think that everyone has the capacity to recognize the inherent contradictions and immediately figure out that the appropriate alternative is socialism. This is a mistake that accelerationists make all the time. Without organizing, without enough people that are educated about their position in society, accelerationism will only accelerate towards fascism, a mechanism of control. In America, without like a vanguard that you speak of, okay, or without like adequate mechanisms of pushback, we will never actually rise through the ashes of this crumbling democracy and build this socialist utopia. That's my point.
More things in Pennsylvania and in America, and we need to stand up and push back against corporate greed, and we need to be in touch with how the average day of a Pennsylvanian is, what their life is, compared to my opponent has no idea what inflation is in terms of what it feels like and what it really and how it manifests itself. But our campaign is running on it, and I'd like to point out too, polls have showed every issue from crime to the economy and everywhere down the line have all voted in that poll that they trust my approach and the way I look at it more than they do with Dr. Oz.
They trust your approach more. Is that what you mean to say?
Correct, yeah.
John, throughout this interview, we talked at this house back in May. We interviewed you and Giselle. Things are very different now. And when people listen to you, it's very clear that you are very much still in recovery. Now, I know you say your doctors tell you that you are good to go. But for people who are watching this and don't...
We're back. There was a brief intermission of policy, a recognition of policy, albeit for a brief moment, only to go back to the main point of contention, a point of contention that we have completely concocted at this point, and we are milking for everything it has. We're back to the fucking old shit. Yeah, you talked about marijuana legalization or decriminalization. You talked about protecting abortion. And then we hand-waved that away a little bit and talked about the inflation crisis. And now we're back to, well, what about your brain? Your brain's pretty bad, right? Fox News would not go this hard on Joe Brandon. They would ask like a couple questions. Like they'll say, many people are saying your cognitive functioning is not, as apt as it once was. What do you have to say to that? Brandon would go, look alive, Jack. Yeah, it's the Mac attack. And then they would fucking turn around and move on to other shit. This is, I don't know if this is like partially because she's just bad at her job, or I don't know if this is just, it's balls to the wall. Even if you wanted to catch him stumbling, even if you wanted him to flub and get a gaffe so you can get your wings, right? You can earn your stripes. You went about it in the worst way possible because when you couldn't catch him gaffing, you just kept hammering the same question over and over and over and over again. And that's a bad interview. She's behaving like all of my fucking insane haters that come into the chat and ask the same question over and over again without a single interest in what my answer is. And when they get my answer and they don't like it because I provide an adequate retort to it, they'll just go, so you're saying, and just make up something entirely different. It's like getting interviewed by my fucking gray names, dude. It's crazy. I hope David Dane is correct, by the way. Thinking of how many Americans have someone they know or someone in their family with a disability or infirmity and realizing that this media-driven hysteria about Fetterman is going to backfire hard.
I have been watching Pennsylvania television a lot while I've been here, and the airwaves are flooded with ads Some of the newer ads are bringing up an issue that has been brought up several times over the course of the campaign, that 2013 incident where you, and I'm quoting the police report here, pulled a shotgun on an unarmed black jogger. That's come back into the spotlight. Your opponent is trying to use it against you. Oz is trying to court black voters. It's a demographic that you both need if you are going to win this race.
Oh, that's it. That's the final one. That's the final one. Let's go. That's it. I was waiting for this. I was like, you chased a black man with a weapon.
For some people who haven't been tuned in, who are just tuning in and learning about this for the first time, what do you say to them?
It was discussed extensively during the primary and in other races that I've been in. It's been attempted by an opponents to turn it into an issue. And the truth is, the people of Braddock, a majority black community, they understood what that situation was about. Defending the community, acting as the chief law enforcement officer of the town, and the people had a vote on that in the primary, and winning all 67 counties. The people didn't believe that is being weaponized against me, and because that's not what was the truth.
You've spent a lot of time on the west side of the
She's like, okay, got the answer. Let's move on from that.
State. You're just starting to spend more time.
Yeah, the black
on
jogger that Fetterman actually stopped endorsed John Fetterman.
That's the area where, when I talk to voters, they're less.
Wait, he did what? You didn't know this? This is like the #1 attack ad against John Fetterman. John Fetterman is in a high crime neighborhood, right? There's a lot of gun violence. He is the mayor of Braddock. While he's the mayor of Braddock, he hears gunshots. He sees someone running. It's a black jogger at the time. Runs out with a shotgun. He apprehends him without any sort of violence, but he does run out with a shotgun, and he stops him. Turns out, just a black jogger. He didn't know. And it is fucked up that he did that. They've been trying to go after him for the duration of this entire campaign. Democrats tried to do it. He admits he's fucked up for it. The guy who was the jogger endorses him. You are way too charitable to him on this. Not only do I think that it's a ridiculous story, the guy fucking endorsed him. What do you want? Shatter be like, the jogger was too charitable with him. He endorsed him at gunpoint. No, that's not how it happened.
Less familiar with you in and around Philadelphia. You just made your first stop in Philly very recently since the stroke. Are you confident that especially black voters in Philly are going to show up for you? And what makes you confident?
I believe that our record, and I think
this guy has won like a black town over and over again in the mayoral race. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck do you mean? He was the lieutenant governor. It's just like, it's such a silly fucking take.
People will turn out for us. Particularly, I have a committed record of working within the kinds of communities that have the issues that parts of Philadelphia has: economic justice, economic development, public safety, public education. All these issues. I've always made my career about it, as opposed to somebody that lives in a gated mansion and have 9 other mansions, that has never spent any time in any of these communities or any of these places, never done anything about fighting against crime, just making empty rhetoric or lies about my record.
Are you soft on crime?
Dude, come on. This is the inherent irony within the Republican line of attacks against John Fetterman. On the one hand, they're saying he's vigilante justice. He chased a black man. He's racist. On the other hand, they're like, he's too soft on crime. He wants black people released from prison to come into your white suburbs. She is unironically repeating that line of questioning right now. And it's perplexing, especially when you consider that like those two things don't go along with one another.
Of course not. I'm actually effective on crime, and I believe in second chances, and I've run on that record.
Don't you think the hoodie attire is working against him in this setting? Absolutely not. No, you're wrong. John Fetterman is the type of motherfucker that wears only Carhartt and wears shorts in the winter. If there's ever been the type of dude that looks exactly like the voters, it's this man. You're crazy. It absolutely works for him, dude. He wears the Pennsylvania uniform. I think a lot of people forget that like Americans don't usually vote on policy. This community is obviously different because this community is built around like anti-capitalist sentiment and attitudes. So clearly you're going to be more focused and more interested on policy provisions. But most Americans don't vote like that. 80% of Americans vote on party lines. 20% of Americans vote on ideology. Okay, never forget that. And a lot of Americans on top of that, the ones that are even voting on party lines, vote on vibes. They vote on fucking who you can drink a beer with, who looks like a chill dude. And John Fetterman absolutely looks like a chill dude you could have a beer with, especially if you're a guy from Pennsylvania.
So in the Senate, how will you hold both of those things? Your push for solutions to the climate crisis while also being pro-fracking here in Pennsylvania?
It's called being the truth. It means that Democrats need to be honest about our energy security, and I've always said about that. And the Republicans need to be ready about climate change. And they're both reals. And we have to find working together and stop weaponizing it against each other and just figuring it out that, right now, fracking and other traditional kinds of fossil fuels are part of our energy portfolio. And as long as we keep transitioning towards green energy, that's the way I believe it's the way to go forward. But again, there's those two truths. Energy security is critical, but also climate change is also very critical.
So is that an issue where you might break with your party if you were especially a 51st vote?
I'm not really sure I understand your question. In terms of, I'm going to vote on what makes sure that our energy security and that it's affordable for a regular American, and it also puts us right on the right path to generating more and more green energy.
You've criticized Joe Manchin a lot, but if you were the 51st...
Bro, they would never in a million years behave against Joe Manchin in this way, for the record. Mainstream media does not behave like this when it comes to Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin is a coal guy. Joe Manchin is in the pocket of the fucking oil and gas industry. They suck him off. They would never attack him like this. That's just makes you think a little bit, okay?
First vote, would you be ready? And are there issues where
I haven't criticized Joe Manchin. That, saying that how he votes, I would vote differently isn't a criticism, with all due respect. It's just saying how you vote is your vote, and I would vote differently, and that's not a criticism. Just saying, that's a different.
Well, if you were the 51st vote, are there issues where you would break with your party?
When it comes to core values like abortion or minimum wage, or that it's the union way of life, for that I would be that 51st vote. I mean, whatever, kinds of issue, but I'm always going to lean in on really core critical issues that I've run my entire career on as well. Not something that's theoretical.
On the topic of abortion, I just want to briefly ask you about the news coming out of Georgia. Abortion has clearly rocked politics, and it's changing the race in a lot of places. What's your take on what's going on there?
She's just not a good interviewer. She kept asking the same questions over and over again, too. So, like, someone said, Montana J, is this reporter even going to address his stroke? It's been almost 3 minutes. Why hasn't she brought up the stroke again? I don't understand. I just wanted the same looping question over and over again. How do you feel about the stroke? How badly did the stroke kill your brain? Do you feel like you're capable of walking? Do you feel like you're capable of thinking? Do you feel like you're capable of hearing?
That's the truth. Dr. Oz likes to make fun of me that I might miss a word, but he's missed 2 words, and that is a yes or no on the national abortion ban. And
honestly, here's a conspiracy theory. I think she wanted to give him another stroke because I feel like I'm having a stroke by watching the same thing loop over and over again. I think she was paid by the Oz campaign to go there and annoy him until he strokes out again.
It's really a truth. Yes or no? Do I support that? And that's what I've consistently said is that it's a critical issue. And if you're going to be our next senator, you have to give the answer.
That's crazy. I'm glad we're over this.